He went straight through their midst and walked away. This passage from today's Gospel sums it up very well. Our Lord was preaching to the people of his own town, and because they knew him and they thought they knew where he came from, although they didn't really, they had sized him up and dismissed him, and he was unable to work the miracle of their conversion, at least at that point. And so he walked straight through their midst and away from them, in a miraculous way even, because they were trying to kill him. And while they didn't believe, in the end they saw a miracle, because while they wanted to kill him, they were unable to do so. Our Lord hadn't been able or willing to prove himself to them, to their satisfaction. And that's one of the fundamental aspects of faith that we need to consider. It's also illustrated in the first reading today from the second book of Kings, where Naaman, Syrian, the leper, wasn't satisfied with the instructions that had been given to him by the prophet and felt that something else would have to be done in order to obtain his cure. But the prophet wasn't going to prove himself to Naaman. It was basically, go wash in the Jordan and you can take it or leave it. You can go wash in the Jordan or you can go home. It's the way you're going to get cured. And of course Naaman reconsidered his arrogance and his self-centeredness and went down and humbled himself and was cured. That is the way of faith. That is the way of approaching God. It's always a challenge from the very beginning. And God doesn't remove the challenge from our encounter with him. St. Anselm, who's the great medieval theologian known sometimes as the father of scholasticism, summed up the study of God theology in this way, called it faith seeking understanding. And while he was an academic and his definition of theology was an academic definition, we can remember that the etymological meaning of theology is the knowledge of God. And so we can apply that definition, faith-seeking understanding, to any kind of approach to the understanding of God or the things of faith, whether it be God himself or the other aspects of his revelation concerning the coming of Jesus and the gospel, or if it concerns morality. There's always going to be that aspect to faith which is a challenge. And very often in this world, and what's illustrated by the behavior of Naaman before he went down into the Jordan, and of course what's illustrated also by the behavior of the people of Nazareth when our Lord preached to them, they were seeking understanding before they were willing to give their faith. And of course, we do seek understanding, and we want to know that our faith is reasonable. That's the role of apologetics. To see that at least the act of faith, that putting our trust in the God who reveals to us, who can neither deceive nor be deceived, is a reasonable thing to do. But apologetics is not going to take away the challenge of faith. In the end, we have to believe on God's authority. We have to respond to his grace. And it's a humbling experience. If we want understanding always before we believe what the Church teaches, we want the Church to prove to us that contraception is wrong. We want to have to prove that marriage is only between a man and a woman. Have to prove that we need to submit ourselves to Christ and His church, that we need to go to confession, that we need to pray every day. If we're seeking God to prove these things to us, to our satisfaction, we will never proceed along the way of the spiritual life, because our Lord is not going to gratify what is fundamentally an arrogant attitude, unless we are willing to humble ourselves before Him who is God Himself who humbled Himself for us. If we're not willing to humble ourselves before the mystery of faith in the Eucharist, Jesus, who has made Himself our food, then we will never have faith. We will never obtain faith. Faith, in the end, is submission to God. It is an acknowledgement of His divine majesty and a willingness to humble ourselves before Him. So sometimes it's very difficult to evangelize because, especially at home, the words of our Lord when He says, "No prophet gains acceptance in his native place." We all know that to be true in our own homes and with the people who know us best. They've sized us up a long time ago, and they know our faults. They know our limitations, and they know that we're not the best witness of the faith in the world. Our Lord was the best witness, and He had no faults. And even so, they sized Him up and wrote Him off. So it might happen to us as well. But in the interests of the gospel, we need to continue to serve our Lord and humble ourselves and try to live the faith ourselves. And remember that as we try to evangelize, it's fundamentally about giving a witness of our own belief, the fidelity that we have ourselves, and our conviction and our actions based upon our convictions. In the end, that is what's going to change people. And our union with Christ, who is mercy, the divine mercy, our works of mercy, both the corporal and spiritual works of mercy. These are the things that are ultimately going to change hearts, especially in a world in which we live, in which people are not always very willing to follow a logical argument, sometimes not capable of following a logical argument. We need to be witnesses to the truth ourselves by our own convictions and by the way we live. Faith seeking understanding, not understanding seeking faith. That is the way we will find God, by humbling ourselves and accepting Him at His own word.